What's going on, everybody? This is your boy Alex, and this is the Drop Podcast. A very special episode today, and with a very special guest. Very excited to have my friend Tyrik Jackson. Uh, we do not know each other personally, but his reputation does follow him, and I say that in a very good and humbling way. I hear a lot of great things about this man. I've been following him for some time from some mutual friends and just he's doing with his school, businesses, and just his life, everything would, that he's been doing. So Tyreek, man, if you could just in a quick minute before I get into questions and things, if you can just kind of introduce yourself, let us know what you're about.
Absolutely. So thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate it's different because now people have so much time to really. I've been scheduling these different interviews at different times. It's been a humbling experience. Been in the industry for over 28 years. I wanted to be a barber more than anything. My English teacher told me that my dream wasn't big enough. I went to cosmetology school because there was no barber schools. I did a barber apprenticeship program. While I was in cosmetology school, my mom, we ended up going together. Right out of high school, I went right into cos and she signed me up and started right with me. So, that was a different experience going to school with your mom. And then I had a dream to open up a shop and one day open a school. The newspaper came in and said, hey, what is it that you want to do? And do you feel uncomfortable being in a cosmetology school and not a barber school, being a man? And I basically said, no, I just want to cut hair. So whatever that means I have to do, that's what I'm willing to do. Perms, the nails, the makeup, I had to do the works. But it was a means to an end. They asked me what my ultimate goal was, and it was to open up a barber school. In 2003, I opened up my first barbershop. 2005, I opened up my second barbershop. So we had 18 available slots for barbers, a 6-chair shop and a 12-chair shop. And then in 2011, I began working at a school. I was always volunteering at schools and traveling the country and teaching at different schools, like just demonstrating. But I would take the time to learn what schools was and how it was because I knew one day I wanted to open one. That was my dream. And when I was 18. So when I got to work at a school in 2011, I was able to build the curriculum. I created the curriculum. I became the instructor of the year from 5 different schools. The campus. I became the director of education, then a campus director within 2.5 years. And then in 2013, I opened up my first school, Premier Barber Institute. So I followed my dream, stuck with my passion, followed my heart, disciplined myself. I gave up the stage and platform work because the school was the goal. That was always the goal. And in 2013, I made it happen.
Man, that's awesome. If I can kind of pick your brain a little bit or dig a little deep.
I know that our backgrounds, our upbringing have a lot to do with who we are today. And just listening to you talk and who you are today, I would love to hear about your childhood or your past. If you can kind of just talk to us a little bit about that.
So I had a loving, caring family. We came from a really big family. Um, and when I say loving and caring, it was dysfunctional, but definitely loving and caring. And so my mom taught me to be kind, respectful, love people and their differences. She had lots of friends, like male friends that were older, that were gay, homosexual men. And as a kid, I would, look at that like, wait a minute. And my mom was just like, look, no, we treat everybody with respect. You got to love
Mm.
everyone regardless of their differences. And even if you don't agree with how their lifestyle is, you have to be willing to just respect people and love them. So at a very early age, I'm talking about early 80s, this was the mindset that my mom gave me. My mom didn't come from a church background that I knew of because we didn't grow up in the church. My dad was, he was an alcoholic, but he was a hard worker and he taught me how to take care of family. So my mom taught me how to love. My dad taught me how to work hard and take care of family. Those were two strong elements. But what they didn't have, none of them were
Awesome.
high school graduates. They didn't complete school. It was when I went to cosmetology school that my mom went and got her GED, and then we started school together. So sometimes you're the threshold for somebody else's breakthrough. And for me, my mom had to fill out the financial aid paperwork, but it was that act that caused her to go and get her GED and kind of help build her self-esteem as well.
Wow.
So when I was around um, 8 or 9, I went to a youth Bible school, like the summertime youth Bible school. And
Yeah.
in that summer, I found Jesus, and I just had like this sense of peace growing up. Like there was just nothing could bother me. I lived in a very optimistic, loving way. I found out at 9 years old that my dad wasn't my dad, that I had another person who was my dad. So,
Wow.
that was tough. Most 9-year olds would be angry with their family or angry with their parents, but I looked at it optimistically. I looked at it like, God gave me two different men for two different purposes, and that he taught my mom, to make the decision she needed to do to give me a good life. And so instead of saying, oh, that's messed up and living on that side of the perspective, I learned to just be forgiving and loving. And it really wasn't even a forgiving thing then. Looking back, I realized that it was like a forgiving thing. But at the time, it was just, I was more excited to have two different people with two different perspectives. Um, so that's pretty much my background. I was like one of the first people in my family to go to church that I knew of in my immediate family. My dad went to jail. And when I say my dad, I meant the one who raised me. When I say my father, I meant the one who made me. So
Mm.
so my father wasn't around. Excuse me. He was a heroin addict. But he was an amazing person. He was athletic and strong. He dealt with depression, and the way that he handled depression was heroin. So my real father, my dad who raised me, his frustration, alcohol was his outlet. But alcohol and drugs destroyed both of them. I lost my real father in 1995 to HIV.
Wow.
My dad, he went to jail. He went to jail. My parents got separated because of violence and alcoholism. He went to jail. But my dad, like most people when they go to jail, they find God, and he did. But I truly say that when he came home, he was completely a different person. And I mean, not like a different person for 6 months, not a different person. I'm talking about for years, for
Wow.
years. Um, he was completely different. And so I think being that threshold of maybe a spiritual impartation, if you will, from me going to church, finding Jesus, bringing that into the home. My mom then started going to church. She ended up going to like a Bible school, to be a minister. My dad came home and he became minister at his church. He was more like security
Wow.
ministry and more like the helps, the different types of serving industry, not like preacher from the pulpit, but like just serving in different capacities, like serve pastor, anything that was like hospitality ministry. So, for years, that had a lot to do with it. And then I realized that when I stopped going and serving, then a lot of my family also stopped serving and going to church. Now I don't know if it has anything to do with it 100%, but I don't think that some things just happen because they happen. And so yeah, great
Yeah.
question.
Man, I love that. I love that. I think that leads me to this. Like super. Like I come from a church background. Like I grew up in church, born and raised. My father's a pastor, been still pastoring for 31, 32 years now. But he's also a barber. Even though he's 20 years old, he had a barber shop in the 80s, and his life transitioned, and he got into ministry and started pastoring, but would still cut hair. Um, Not many of us picked up the art. My little brother picked up the art. He's currently a barber in Connecticut, and he loves doing that. One of the things about how those work together to me is that I believe that you have an access to people that not many people have. You guys, barbers are like, it's like my dad. I told my dad, I'm like, I don't think your profession ever changed. I think you're still a barber. You're a psychologist. You're a
Yeah,
therapist.
it's
You
still
hear
his
everybody's issues.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's still his ministry, whether it's from the pulpit or behind the chair, and that's sort of how I see
that's good.
um, my my ministry, with Tyrik Talk Tuesdays and my ability to have a school, that is like my building church. That's where I'm able to speak into people's lives and encourage them and help them. People think that they come to learn how to cut hair, and they do, right? But they really learn how to get through life management skills. They learn how to think better, and not the superficial professionalism. I'm talking about the ability to connect with these students and tap into their personal psyche, find out what are the things that really have hurt them, have broken them, have challenged them, and then be able to break through that. There's no greater gift than be able to help change someone else's life. And I think that that's what barbering has done for me, not just from a physical perspective and making them feel good about themselves on the outside, but being able to use that platform of being behind the chair or in front of the classroom and now in front of the world through social media, and being able to impact people and help people with perspective and the way that they think about life.
I love that. I would love to hear your insight. I just finished a series on, and we've all heard the story of David and Goliath.
Hmm.
I did a series on that on my podcast, and I brought a whole different perspective to it. I don't try to be super churchy. We go to church on Sunday, so we can get
Yeah.
that there.
Yeah.
But one that I talked about, and I think we're kind of hitting. I think we're driving that in right now in our conversation, is that how do people I guess develop, or how do they follow through with these perspectives? What do I mean by that? You know, David had 5 stones, right? We know that, and from the 5 stones, one stone was the one that killed Goliath. And the point in that series was that the time of preparation will always be greater than the time of execution.
Absolutely. I talk about it all the time. Be ready so you don't have to get ready. And
Mm,
what I mean by that, what I learned in high school was 1,000% more than what I was getting when I was a barber apprentice. I was getting
wow.
some hands-on experience in the barbershop, and yes, I was understanding the culture of barbering, but I didn't understand barbering at a high level. I had my license, I had my knowledge. I got my manager's license a year later. I got my teacher's license 5 years later, and there was no schools to work at. People were like, "Why are you getting a teacher's license? Like, that's stupid. Like, they need nowhere to work." It wasn't about having a place to work. It was about being prepared. And so in the
Mm,
stories of David and Goliath, I think Goliath was the underdog. The Bible
mm,
depicts that Goliath was this big giant. Maybe visibly it was a big thing, and most people were fearful of that because he was so much bigger. But I believe that Goliath was the underdog because David he knew how to use shot. He knew all I need is one. You can get me three. I'm gonna pick these three up, but all I need is one because I'm that good. I'm not worried about the obstacle because I've been prepared to overcome the obstacle. Again, right now we're COVID-19. We all had to come in houses and quarantine and get away from our businesses and the other things that we like and love to do. Now, no one, I don't care who you are or what you were, unless you had an inside source and you actually sold this thing or whatever the conspiracy theories are. I'm not focused on that. But no one has been prepared for a pandemic. Some people prepared for a rainy day. Some people put money aside for this. Some people had money invested in that. But everyone is affected by this.
Make sure you tune in next week for part 2 of The Drop and Tyrik Jackson. Don't miss out.